So were you guys able to hear that okay?
Yeah, it came across well.
Loud and clear.
Okay. It's just hard speaking through my nose like that. All right. Let's see. What? Just hard speaking through my nose. Okay, who is that? So, what do you got? How was your day, Landon?
It was all right. Sorry. It was all right. Another busy day in the grocery industry.
In the gross industry?
Yeah, gross industry.
People are still buying. They're consuming a lot more, at least from my perspective.
All right. Well, after I looked at what was missing from the stores, Cheetos and Oreos and ice cream and stuff, I said, no wonder all the toilet paper's missing.
Right.
Yeah, here all of the beans and rice and seeds and all that kind of stuff is missing.
Yeah, same here. I thought Costco just ran out of beans. Like they stopped selling the beans and rice, and then I realized no, everybody's just buying it all.
Yeah, they're just hoarding it. Okay, let's go back here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, Numbers chapter 4. Who has what?
I had down. I thought it was interesting that the Levites. It was all the work was like ascribed to them between the ages of 30 and 50.
30 and 50. I noted that too. It was repeated.
I did too. I noted that also. The thought that came to my mind on that is they were still strong enough, healthy enough, but they had maturity and wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Maturity came to mind.
Yeah. Or they should have wisdom by then. They had some maturity behind them. They weren't just, young kids. But then that shifted later on for the Levites was 25 to 50.
Yep.
So interesting.
What happened there? Maybe there's a 5-year apprenticeship program.
Well, that wouldn't be,
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is just about an apprenticeship program. And then I don't know, the first thing that popped, well, let's stick to this chapter. Hold on. Let's see here. As we discussed before, badger skins, don't know where they got that. Should be antelope, some type of antelope.
Really?
Yeah, if you look up that word in the Hebrew, it's actually antelope.
That would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, because look how many years we were asking, well, I don't understand why they're going to put an unclean animal skin inside the tabernacle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because, I don't know, King James hated the Irish or something.
Yeah.
Or you really like badgers.
Yeah, they really liked badgers.
Little honey badgers.
Right? Honey badger can't hang with the ark. Okay. Anyways. Let's see here. Yeah, so that was very interesting. I guess everybody kind of got picked up on that. 30 to 50. And then after 50, when you turn 51, what? You're retired?
Well,
Us for Moses, I guess.
if it goes back to, we have to jump ahead to chapter 8, but they're to be, so would they be trainers for the next group of people? Because they said the Levites were to go be with the brethren in the...
Actually, I think that they would perhaps be in the seat of Moses, right? Because each settlement, every city, you had the gate of the city where all the elders would congregate.
Mm-hmm.
Like we see that in, is it Ruth? Where where he is applying for the position of Ruth's husband as next of kin, right? Kinsman redeemer.
Mhm.
And he calls together everybody at the city gate and says, hey, this is what the deal is. So
they become like the city elders.
well, that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. I'm speculating.
You ever met men that retire? They go insane, crazy.
Some do.
Unless they're exhausted or have some sort of health issue, it's like you can only sweep the garage so many times. I don't, they got to find something to do.
Right.
Well,
Say that my father-in-law wore the bristles out on his broom.
Have you ever seen people when they're like disabled to where they can't do stuff anymore too? It drives them nuts.
Yeah.
Yep. And I don't know why, but I was adding that up, and then it tells us, anyways, in verse 48, the Levites for the service, 30 to 50, were 8,580. So that's not a lot of people.
Mm-mm.
But then again, it's a lot of tent to be moving with those beams and everything.
well, because those beams were probably not small. So, and how many of them, and it would take, depending on how much they weighed and everything, it could take 10, 20 people to carry those things.
Or more.
It's
50 cubits long, so that's like 75 feet.
So yeah, it's going to take quite a few people to carry that thing.
Yeah. Isn't that right? Is that right? 50 cubits?
I'd say at least 100. At
I don't
least 100 for something.
Well, do they carry it on their shoulders, or do they have like strapping or
I
something?
think the ones carrying on their shoulders are the ones carrying the actual
The ark.
ark.
I have a feeling they probably had a system, like some type of wheels or pulley,
Yeah,
Oh,
because later on they were given oxen.
Well, I would imagine it'd be like when they put up big tops,
Mhm.
big top circus.
I'm thinking like they had to know how to work in unison because of the slavery of Egypt. So the father used that to train them, their mind and with their thought in such a way that they kind of understood how to work together. One you had to slavery and bondage, right to death, and now it's obedience. But to carry all this weight, I don't know. I was just thinking about that. Like, I think you're right. I think they would have had a system, but it was well understood why it needed to be that way.
But once you get on a team that requires that, you really have an appreciation for people that know their role and how everything works together.
Yep.
And I can see that as far as the what were we talking about? An apprenticeship, doing a 5-year apprenticeship. Because if you're working with heavy lumber and stuff, it's a great way to get killed if you mess something up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or if you're on a roof, or
Yeah, it's a real good way to die. Okay, let's go to 5 here, and verse 2. Let's look at that real quick. That they put out of the camp every leper and everyone that hath an issue, and whosoever is defiled by the dead. So, if you touch a dead body, right, remember you're unclean for however long a period of time. So when you go out with the lepers, is everybody allowed to congregate, or do they have like segregation, like people that go into prison? Would they self-segregate?
At least 6 feet.
Yeah. Were they social distancing?
that's what.
That's what?
Except that's fine. Except I was like, oh, but this legit you being a leper.
Yeah. Right. What happens if somebody's in two categories? Like you're hanging out with the defiled with the dead people, and then you find out that one of them's a leper.
Mm.
Was it if you took a clean animal, then you have to be unclean till evening?
You're breaking up a little bit. Yeah.
So if you touch a clean animal dead, is that do you have to wash and be unclean till evening?
I think so, because it's blood, right? Anytime you come in contact with blood, you're unclean. You wash with water, and you're unclean till evening.
Hmm.
You're unclean. But if it's an unclean animal and you touch its carcass or blood, you're defiled.
Mm-hmm.
It's still unclean until evening. So I don't know.
Yeah, so when they were sacrificing and they were sacrificing the animals, then they would have been unclean till evening, right?
And that's what, though I now understand that to be when Aaron was told, you shall bear the iniquity of the priesthood. Right? So they're constantly being defiled. They're constantly touching blood. They're working on Sabbath, any Sabbath, right? I mean, look at people bringing sacrifices for a high Sabbath. You know, that was their job. They were required to work. And what is it? And at some point, he says, "I sanctify you because you're doing work for me. You're working directly for me."
No wonder the world viewed Christ the way that they did. That's interesting.
Yep. What else we got in chapter 5?
Oh, I have my cup of bitter water thing that
Yeah.
still rolls around in my head since the coat and who I went with taught on what that
Yeah.
was, and
I've
man,
heard that.
it's amazing. You stop and think about that, and you're like, wow.
So what is it that they taught?
That the cup of bitter water, the reason that Yeshua was sweating blood in the garden was because he knew what he was getting ready to drink. He was getting ready to drink this cup of bitter water for the adultery of Judah, because he had divorced Israel, so it was no longer part of it. But Judah hadn't been dealt with. And so he basically, when you are crucified, your belly swells and all that fluid goes into your cavities, and your legs just rot and buckle.
Yeah. Basically, he did the exact thing you would have had to do for the jealousy offering.
Right.
As like the bride. But then he teaches that the vinegar that he drank too represented the bitter water that you would drink to then find out if you were, the woman had cheated or not. And basically what happened on the cross would have been the same exact thing that would have happened to the woman when she drank that drink to prove that she had. So they say that he has a good teaching on that, saying that he fulfilled that as well.
And when you're standing there listening to it and he's describing it, of course you just sit there and you just get sick at your stomach. You're just like, ugh. And it just brought a lot more light into what, why was he sweating blood in the garden? Because he knew what he was getting ready to have to go through. It wasn't just dying, it was the whole process. It was, the scourging and the beatings and the cross, the crucifixion, which is not just a wonderful way to go. and then the cup of bitter water on top of it.
That's right. So in other words, Jesus, Yeshua, suffered that penalty for the adulterous bride.
Right.
Yep.
He took that upon himself, so she didn't have to perish.
Right.
And then the other thing about it is, too, he had divorced Israel, the house of Israel.
Right.
The house of Ephraim, he had divorced. Well, by his law, you can't take back. The original husband cannot take back the divorced bride unless there's a death.
Correct.
Right.
And now there was.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I mean,
Yeah, that's what Paul talks about in some of his writings, and people are just like have no idea what he's talking about. But after studying Torah, because everybody at the time was like, how do they take the northern kingdom back? You can't. He divorced them in his law. You can't take it back.
Yeah.
And then, he died. Now she's freed from the law, so now she can be married again.
What a huge blessing for everyone that's covered by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we think about, there's a difference with when we sin, we don't realize it.
Yep.
And when we go out and we purposely sin, you're basically rejecting that, or you're crucifying him again.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Well, let's go to number 6, chapter 6 of Numbers. That got very, very first, right off the bat. Right? Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, when either man or woman shall separate themselves to vow a vow of a Nazarite. So how often do we hear, though, you're stepping into, women can't do that or whatever. But, a Nazarite vow was a pretty serious thing.
I feel like it'd be easier for a woman to not cut the locks of her head than a man.
Yeah, but what about when she redeems that vow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shave that off.
Good point.
So it's like you either get it on the front end or the back end.
Yeah.
I've got a cousin that's got hair down to his waist. It's gorgeous. I just stare in like envy.
Yeah.
He's been growing it for like 3 years.
Yeah,
Is he a
until it's
Nazarite?
stuck in a tree.
Just 3 years?
I don't know how long it's a long time. Well, this has grown in less than a year.
This is less than a month, and it's driving me insane.
Landon, I'll send you some scissors.
Oh, relax, Landon.
Are you doing a Nazarite vow, Landon?
No. They've just shut the world down, and I couldn't. I want to. I think that it's important. There's a reason why it's written, and we hear the stories of like Samson. I think that's just an example. It doesn't mean that you're gonna get the strength, or especially if you're doing it for that. Like it's not, because you're doing it for yourself, versus the Father. But I've been interested in taking that, but I want to at least fully understand, at least at the level with the Father, like what it needs to be before I do that. Because there are certain things, like there's no temple to bring a sacrifice to. But
Can we have the instructions of what the Nazarite vow is for? Not just how to do it, but what's it for? Is it a sanctification? Is it a set apart?
Oh, well, that's a part of it. I think it has something to do with, I don't want to call it a pilgrimage, but it has something to do with sanctifying yourself for a special work, like for the Father, maybe. but I don't know. I need to study it further. I do. I think it's really important though. I mean, I think it's really as serious as they took it. Maybe they understood it a little better, but it's got to be a reason it's there, and we're told in detail, right? Like there's something. There's just something there that I know that it's important, and I think that it's something to really be looked over, so that if called to, maybe it
Well, you're going to have to get over, having hair an inch long bugs you.
Mhm.
right.
You have to take scissors away from you.
And see, okay, so I have two. I was actually thinking about the Nazarite vow a few hours ago. Which one does it require when taking the vow to shave? Like you don't have to touch your hair when taking the vow. Just if
It says locks of your head. It
Hmm.
never says face. Some people say that, well, your face is on your head, but it doesn't specify that. And when it does specify shaving your beard in other spots of the scripture. So I don't know.
Well, but it also says if you accidentally come against a dead person, then you have to shave after 7 days. Everything. Your
And
whole
you have
body.
to start over. You lose everything that you've done, whatever it is that you're doing, all that. I guess it's sort of like when you fast and you interrupt a fast. Well, okay, now I got to start all over.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, you got to be limber to use a straight razor on your back.
Right, but my other question that I thought of today, because this kind of gets into legalese. So, an animal outside, or probably a neighbor's cat, killed a little possum. I assume that was underneath the house. And I went out there to pick the little guy up and deal with it. And I grabbed a napkin and I disposed of it. But I was thinking, because of the Nazarite vow, like, does that count? And it really gets into that whole legal. We see the problem with the ways of the world going, well, I'm not doing that because, and it leaves that little loophole. And again, if it's something to be taken so seriously, like you would never want to even be in that position. But I'm just curious if technically your body doesn't touch. If you're in a situation like that, we're talking about today's day and age. I had to remove a dead animal from the front yard. Does that count, or is it I didn't touch him with my physical skin? You know what I mean? I'm just.
Well, they probably had. I mean, I'm sitting here going, well, you probably take, like Sabbath says, a shovel, or I'm sure a pole, or I'm sure they had things like that back then. So I would think it would be the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, or does it mean literally, like you're saying? Does it mean literally touch it, or kind of vicinity of it? I don't know. That's a good, quick question.
Anything else for chapter 6? I keep shutting my camera off. Okay.
Down.
No, that was just the starting over thing was what I had that I noticed.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
This chapter 6 is the number 6, 24 through 26. It's a special prayer. A friend of mine says a lot. The blessing that where the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying thus: You shall bless the people of Israel. You shall say to them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So shall they put my name upon the people of Israel, and I will bless them." And a friend of mine says that a lot. Usually when signing off for something, I don't know. It's a sticker on the computer that he gave me, written in the original Hebrew, and The way that he describes it, and it really stuck with me, because this is the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, thus you shall bless the people of Israel. You shall say to them." And much like that vow, it's got to be important, you know. He said, "Say this over all the people, over all the congregation." So I just think that's something important, very important.
Anything for 7?
I had a pretty good list on 7.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. Some of them were questions, some of them were just comments.
Well, I had Westerns pop into my head in verse 3.
Westerns.
And they brought their offering before the Lord, 6 covered wagons and 12 oxen.
So I'm guessing these were given to them so that they could do their service to carry everything. Is that what we're thinking?
Well, I don't know. It's 1 ox per wagon, a wagon for 2 of the princes, 6 covered wagons, 12 oxen. Oh, for each one of the princes, an ox. Interesting. I don't know. It's just interesting. You know, if they were to do it in movies, I'm sure they wouldn't have covered wagons. They'd probably have the great big wheels, like cave wheels on there.
It makes sense.
The what?
I said it would make sense. They had tents, you know.
Right.
Doesn't take much to figure out. Put a tent over a wagon.
Like the camper shell for back then.
Yeah, that was van life back then.
Right.
So were these the leaders of the tribes at this point?
Right. These are the chiefs of each tribe.
Okay. Yeah, and then I got this shows where Ephraim and Manasseh is listed and not Joseph. And then, of course, there's 12 tribes listed because Levi's taken out.
Yep.
So there's the actual 13.
So that's a lot of sacrifices. I think verse 89 should probably be in the next chapter. And when Moses had gone into the tabernacle of the congregation to speak with him, then he heard the voice of one speaking unto him from off the mercy seat that was upon the ark of the testimony from between the 2 cherubims. How's that for a cliffhanger? Okay, let's go on to 8.
Yeah, I agree with you that probably should be there.
Right.
Like, who did that? Who made these decisions?
I don't know. I forget who it was. I think it was maybe Steve Mutria that said he was praying and he trying to figure something out that he was reading, and it came to him, washed across him. I didn't put the big numbers there.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, so like he flipped back to the end of the previous chapter and he was like, oh, now it makes total sense.
Well, I was watching Daniel Joseph from Corner Fringe Ministries, and he's doing Hebrews. He's doing a really massive, huge Hebrew study. And he said, if you go back and you read Septuagint, there's no punctuation, there's no chapters, there's no verse, there's no nothing.
Right.
And so he said, no, we have things that are nice now in that we've got some punctuation marks, but those can create problems.
Yeah. Well, that's how Latin was. There was no punctuation, no capital letters. They just go blah, 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 and run a big long string of letters together. You kind of had to figure out, well, where does it start and stop?
Well, the one thing that he had brought up, and I know this is, I'm doing over there type thing. He brought up when Jesus was hanging on the cross and the thief was addressing the thief. He said, "I tell you today that you will be with me in paradise."
Right.
Well, in most translations, "I tell you today, comma, you will be with me in paradise." In other translations, "I tell you, comma, today you will be with me in paradise." Those two things have completely different meanings.
Right. And it's kind of like that example you see, probably still see it on Facebook, right? What is it? I don't know, something like, let's have grandma.
Yeah, you've seen
Have
yeah,
grandma for dinner.
yeah.
Depends on where you punctuate it,
Mhm.
whether or not you're a cannibal.
Or you're just having your grandmother over to eat.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that particular verse lends credence that what he was discussing was the idea that, Scripture says to be to not be here, you're with the Lord. Does that mean that you immediately go to paradise, or do we have a holding place in between? So there's a lot of doctrine built on that scripture.
Yeah. I believe they went together that day. But that's just me. Right. And then verse 4 of this, again, they bear just another witness. According unto the pattern which the Lord had showed Moses. So Moses was shown all this up on the mountain. All the blueprints for how this was supposed to go down. Or given a vision into heaven to see what he was making a replica from or of.
So now that makes me wonder. So is the ark that was created here, is this the same ark that is seen when the sky rolls back?
That John saw in heaven.
Or is this a replica that's here and the Father has taken it up to heaven, or is he just not going to allow it to be found, or is it disintegrated over the years? What's the thought?
Right. It's a good question.
I have a hard time believing Ron Wyatt lied about finding it. But just based on everything else he did and found and just watching his testimonies, it's like, I just don't think this guy would make it up. But supposedly, rumor has it that, I mean, it's not really rumor, I guess. There's not really any proof, but they say that they tried to get it out, that Israel tried to get it out where he found it, and 7 men got struck dead when they got near it. And it's like, well,
would make sense.
They said Ron Wyatt had to go in there and get their bodies out because he was the only one allowed to be near it and not get killed. And it's like, well, that's what happened with the high priest. One person.
If you touch it, can you be around it?
I think you can be around it, but when David went and got the ark and was taking it back, taking it to Jerusalem,
studied it.
That one guy tried to study it and stopped.
So you think those guys, Matt, probably were touching it?
Yeah, I think, well, they were sent to retrieve it. So I think they all went and grabbed it and probably, I don't know. That's just what they say. And
even with the poles, though, were those were Levites that were carrying that.
Yep.
Mhm.
So
Those are the ones that had to bear on their shoulders.
right. So should you even attempt it if you're not a Levite? Even with poles?
Why is the world so focused on asking you to give them your DNA?
That's a good question. Hey, let's try the people of this DNA. Nope, they died too. Okay, let's try some other people.
Well, and if my ancestry tree is correct, I have a Levitical priest. 900 something
Hmm.
AD.
Well, we're gonna have to shave all your hair off.
You think
It's taken me a year to grow this hair out.
you think that they would be able to get that out though with some type of machinery or something? You know what I mean? Like, apparently not, or they've just not. I don't know.
Well, where was it? Isn't it like it's Saudi Arabia or something, or where?
No, he said he found it under Jerusalem.
So they found it under Golgotha,
Hmm.
Which is
Right.
Catherine?
where Messiah was crucified. The claim is that the blood ran down from the cross there to underground under this cave, and then his blood literally went upon the mercy seat.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because
So is
that's
it in a cave under Golgotha? Is that what you're saying? Where it's supposed to lay out?
That's the claim. Yep,
Is it Ron Wyatt?
correct.
and they even show the wall. Like, there's another entrance in there, and supposedly there's like a really quick makeshift wall that they made like thousands of years ago to barricade that area off. They think Jeremiah would have done that. There's a lot of weird stuff around it, but he claims he found it. He even claims that he took the blood off the mercy seat, brought it to the Israeli doctors or whoever checks blood, and that they tested it, and that there was the chromosomes in it were only female or something. There was no male chromosomes in it at all, which is impossible. There was only one parent. It was a mother. So they're like, "Whoa, whose blood is this?" And he testifies this. I mean, they got him on camera saying it.
Well, I'm wondering how he got that blood off without dropping dead, too.
I don't know. But supposedly when he found it, he passed out for a very long time and woke up later and felt like he just woke up a minute later, but it was like a week later or something.
Didn't he? I think I saw that. And didn't he encounter like some what he thought were angelic beings?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And they told him what supposedly certain things. I don't know. But he did find the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark, the Noah's Ark. He found Sodom and Gomorrah. He found like the chariot wheels, the Red Sea crossing. He found like a lot of stuff.
Yep, interesting character, or was.
He even found Mount Sinai, like the real Mount Sinai. He found where the
Abu al-Jwez.
Yeah, he found the golden calf where they would have made the altar.
I did see that thing where the Mount Sinai, where it's burned on the top, and there's actually artifacts and stuff out in the desert in front of it. If that's the same thing I saw.
Yeah, it's closed off. Don't know why they would put a fence around that and not let you in.
I wonder why. Doesn't fit the narrative.
Yeah, didn't they fenced the whole area in, didn't they? The Saudi Arabian government?
Yep.
Yeah, weird. A mountain makes no sense. It looks like a prison fence too.
Yeah, stout. Very stout. Anything else from chapter 8?
And what stuck out to me, I don't really know what to make of it, but I'm starting at 17, where he says, "On the day that I struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I consecrated them for myself." He's talking about all the firstborn of the people of Israel.
Right.
and I don't. It just made me think. I don't know if they knew that when it went on, but and I have taken the Levites instead of all the firstborn among the people of Israel.
Yep.
Verse 19, and I have given the Levites as a gift to Aaron and his sons from among the people of Israel.
Right.
I don't know what to make of that yet, but
Well, it's like Samuel, that woman, his mom, said, if you just give me a son, I promise I'll dedicate him to you and take him to the temple. And that's what she did. It was her firstborn son. She took him and gave her son to the high priest. And he was there day and night in the temple. So instead of all Israel doing that, though, giving their firstborn, just like he says, anything that breaks the matrix, right? But instead of every member, every family of every tribe giving their firstborn for service of the temple, he just takes one whole tribe.
Right.
And
But he said it's a gift to Aaron and his son.
right. Yep. So now all they're taking care of is the stuff inside the sanctuary, inside the Holy of Holies. And when it comes to having to break down the tabernacle and carry all that stuff, Aaron and his sons don't have to do it. The Levites are doing it, though.
Right.
But then they're also supported, though, by all of Israel.
Right.
So their offerings, when they bring like their firstborn lamb or their first fruit of the wheat or their first fruit of barley or whatever, that gets distributed out among the priests and the Levites. So it's their pay for doing it.
Well, and I think this was something that I brought up before. It says, it's talking about, where is that? Verse 17. For all the firstborn of the children of Israel are mine, both man and beast. On the day that I smote every firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified them for myself. So were the firstborn of Egypt a sacrificial sanctification for the firstborn of Israel?
Would they have been? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I guess, kind of. Except they would have just let them stay alive and be a servitude. I think. Is that what you said?
The way I'm reading it is it's a replacement.
Right. It's a substitute.
It's a substitution for the firstborn of Egypt that was killed was basically a substitution for the firstborn that would have to be redeemed.
Right.
Maybe it was a redemption of those of Israel.
Well,
No sense.
they were covered. The Israelites were covered by the Passover.
Right.
And in exchange for them keeping their lives, he said, they're all mine. Right? So in other words, I covered them, so.
Right. And Egypt, the firstborn of Egypt was that sacrifice for that covering. Does that make sense?
Right. It makes sense. I understand what you're asking. I don't believe that's how it was, though.
Okay.
I wondered one thing. I don't want to jump off of it if you're done talking about it, but I just because it escaped my mind, and I was just reminded back to the Nazirite thing, and I think there was one other instance where they're commanded to shave every. But then again, Matt said the locks of your head. I thought there was somewhere they're told to shave all the hair off their body, and it just
if they come up against any dead person,
right.
So they have to separate for a week, and then when they come back, they have to offer trespass offering or something, and then shave off every hair on their whole body, even their head, knuckles, and their big toe.
it could. I understand it could be for health reasons, for like leprosy and stuff, but it's I don't know. I wonder if the Egyptians thought that like there was power in that. I don't know. I don't know. It's something that the enemy's a copycat, and I was just thinking with this obsession, even today's fashion industry, like hair is the enemy, right?
Right.
And I just wonder if it was a corrupted version. The Egyptian side was a corrupted version of the father giving the statute, shave the hair off your body, and I don't know. I don't know. I just forgot to mention it, really.
Interesting. Okay. Well, anybody else got something? I'll wait for that to catch up. I don't know. Okay, so Wednesday, 2 days from now, we're going to look into, I guess we'll do a precursory example, or not example, but a pre-introduction of looking at the seals in Revelation and those getting opened up and how they relate to the bowls of wrath. And then, of course, we'll be looking at the trumpets at some point, too. So, thank you, Dee. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Landon. Thank you, Eli. And everybody, thanks for popping in tonight. I know you had a long day, and appreciate you spending your evening with us. Very grateful for that. And remember, our Father's in charge. Love you all. Talk to you soon. Night.